I've heard you discuss and describe the strategic issues in Monaco as technical, a problem with the numbers, and I just wondered what that meant for this weekend in terms of the software. Will you be using upgraded strategic software, or what have you learned?
No, I think that when going back to Maranello, we had a look and we review all together what happened, the decisions, why we took this decision or not. And I think it's, as first it came out that it was not an obvious one, so I don't think it was black and white. I think that the decision we took at the time with the data we had somehow could have been right, and I think everybody understood it. And it has been unfortunate, all the circumstances there. I think that when Charles pitted the first time, he had 10-second advantage at the start of the lap on check, and no one would have expected he would have fallen behind. So certainly when something like that is happening, there is something to improve, and I think that as first, a transparent review between the individuals and the team was important. Second, try obviously to always to improve your tools to make them more accurate and have a better, let me say, data in order to make the right judgment. But I cannot blame the team. I can certainly not blame the team because it was an obvious one. I think the fact they regroup and the review already make us stronger, and I'm pretty sure that we have lesson learned and we are here stronger compared to Monaco.
Absolutely. Fastest in both quali and race pace yesterday. What have you changed to make sure that you were top of the pile in those two? Is it simple science?
Can you repeat it?
You're top of quali and race sims yesterday. What have you changed to make sure you're at the top, or is it not that simple?
No, I think if we look at the first races of the season, we have always been competitive as Red Bull is, and I think it's very close between us and them. It's within a tenth maybe or 2 tenths. And so far it has been the case on different type of circuits, different type of layouts. So I think no surprise that here again it will be very close, and if I look at yesterday it was again very, very close. So I think it will be a big challenge, a very close fight here once again. We are trying to prepare ourselves in the best way. We got a lot of data collected yesterday, trying to improve the setup and the driver confidence for today, the quali, and then we'll face tomorrow the race, which again I think can be a big gamble in terms of strategies because you never know what may happen in Baku, red flags, safety cars. So we will need to be prepared. But it's a new race, a new challenge, and we are simply looking forward to it.
And just finally, the porpoising seemed a little worse for you yesterday. You mentioned in the press conference that it's not affecting your performance, so hurrah, that's great. But what are the drivers saying to you about drivability and comfort, and is that a concern for you?
I don't know, maybe it's affecting us as well, and we could be a lot faster without the bouncing. But bouncing is there, it has been there since the very start of the season. No doubt that we are going softer and lower today, so we are bottoming and bouncing a bit more. Here the track is very bumpy, especially on the straights, so it's not a surprise that we are bouncing, but it's always a matter of finding the right compromise between drivability and performance of the car. We made some changes yesterday. We tried to understand what's the best compromise furthermore today, and hopefully we'll be simply competitive in quali in the race.
Told me that you were experimenting with some things yesterday, and I just wondered what that experiment has told you about the potential theory you had coming into this weekend.
Yeah, we were experimenting with the aerodynamics, the bouncing and the ride of the car, and it was important to take some extreme decisions, and we did that on Lewis's car, and the learning will help us going forward.
Do you have another concept being worked on in parallel, like we've seen with Aston Martin, that you could switch to if you do ultimately come up against a brick wall with this one?
I think there is always avenues that you can take that are very different to what you've been looking at before, and you need to have that in the pocket while still trying to comprehend what the priorities are.
George told me last night that it's not really sustainable to race this type of car for the number of years we're all expecting to. What can you do in the short term to make sure he's okay, to make sure Lewis is okay, so that they have comfort when they're out there trying to extract the performance?
Both are suffering with back pains from the bouncing, and certainly that's the case in some of the other cars. But there is other teams which don't have that problem. So I think first of all we need to look at ourselves and see how can we solve that problem. And if it continues to happen, then we need to look at solutions in the regulations, how it can be reduced, because the bouncing is there on every car. It's less intense and dramatic in some cases, more with us and Ferrari.
And just on a more general note, I wondered if you could compare your day-to-day workflow, both your own and the team's, being the hunter rather than the hunted?
Somehow being the hunted is nice because you're setting the benchmark, but it's also there's also a lot of pressure and stress involved in it because your own expectation is to win, and then if somebody's close, that can cause a stress moment. On the other side, hunting is easier because you know where the benchmark is, you know what you need to achieve, you look at the data from the other teams and you see where you're losing time. But as we are, we'd rather be at the front.
So is it more meetings as well? You know, in the factory, are you having brainstorming meetings? How does that work?
Yeah, it's flat out because sometimes when you win, you never go home and say, why the hell did we win? But certainly you do when you lose.
Yesterday was difficult with Mick having that water leak. How does that affect you going into Canada with parts and bits and pieces that you might need?
I mean, what happened yesterday to Mick, that was a very small damage. It was a water hose which came loose actually, you know, because we were touching on the ground. That had with Canada nothing to do, but if you have a big damage here, we are very lean on spare parts because it's not financially, it's actually we cannot manufacture enough in the moment. You know, it takes a long time to make front wings, and all these parts are very complex, and Dallara is doing a fantastic job trying to keep up with because most of these parts are structural and they try to keep up, but in the moment we struggle to keep up, but we always try to do our best. We had one front wing flown out today that we have a spare, that we have a second spare basically, you know, so we are doing the best we can, but if you have a big crash, there could be an issue.
In terms of the bumps as well then, are the drivers going to have to drive at sort of less than 100% this weekend to make sure that they're not taking any risks?
No, I think you always, what is 100%, you know, there is always, you don't know the limit. I think they know that they shouldn't be going into the wall and they shouldn't do anything too risky, but it's still their job to find the limit and stay within it, you know. So it's because otherwise if you go out there and say, oh, I just drive 90%, you know, when everybody else is driving 100% and we are, all these cars are within tens or hundreds of a second, if you don't do 100%, you're nowhere.
Absolutely. You've obviously mentioned that you're not moving into the upgrade spec car yet because there was more performance to wring out of the car. How close are you to maximising what you've got at the moment?
I think we're getting closer. You know, yesterday was a little bit of a setback in FP2. We didn't really know why we lost so much performance, but we are upbeat about it and try to come back today in FP3 to see if we find some performance again like we had on the last 3 races.
Mick's taking a little bit of flack in the media, a bit of chat in the paddock about his future. How are you managing him at the moment to make sure you get the best out of him on track?
We try as a team to do the best for him, to put him in the best position, that he is comfortable, that he gets his confidence back, I would say, because I explained it to him, it's in our best interest to give you the best, because if you make points, we make points, and that is what we desperately need.